G'day everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. So in this video today I'm starting a brand new weekly series called The Good, The Bad and The Ugly. Oh, just push that away. Yes, I know it is the exact same segment they do on the Couch, another footy show, but I just think the concept itself is a really cool idea to do because I'm wanting to do more talking footy weekly on the channel, add a bit of extra content on the YouTube, because of course we do have the footy tips, we have the watch alongs, so I just want to add in a little bit more, and I think just a nice weekly segment to do after each round, bit of chewing the fat, giving my 2 cents of the round, going over the good stuff, the bad stuff, and the ugly stuff. It's something that I am pretty interested in doing, so pretty much after each round we'll go over 3 goods, 3 bads, and 3 uglies, because instead of just one of each, we add 3, just to spread out the content, make the videos a bit more lengthy. And of course, there's a lot to go over after each round. So in other words, it's just pretty much a round review going over the highlights and the lowlights of each AFL round. If you're going to enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. That'll be much appreciated. And let's get straight into it. Okay, so we'll kick it off with the first 3 goods, then the 3 bads, and the 3 uglies. That's just how the format will work. We'll kick it off with the first good, and it's got to be the Hot Pies exciting style. Jeez Louise, when we came into this season, I was just having a little bit of second thoughts about the Pies. I was still confident they were going to be a final side this year, but I was just like, are they going to now show a bit more dominance? Are they going to win big? That's just been the missing piece in that Pies puzzle to potentially push for a flag this year. And to be honest, these first 2 rounds, they have absolutely blitzed it in just the bold play again, more defensive accountability. Like that game against Port on the weekend, absolutely outstanding. Just how they're able to transition from defense to attack is scarily good. I've always said with the Pies, especially this year, they are such a well-balanced team. The synergy is high, the coaching is brilliant, there's just good spirits, the home field advantage too, the fans, it's all clicking at the moment. And the chemistry as well, how the players are able to hit the corridors so well, the overlapping handballs, players just lining up, the Dacos brothers as well, how good have they been? Tom Mitchell in and under, he's been brilliant too. And you have a few of the role players in there too, like Hoskin Elliott's not been too bad. I've liked Noble's past 2 weeks as well. Quaynor's improving his game. They're just really building nicely. Collingwood, they're not only playing exciting footy, but they're doing it flawlessly, especially against some good quality opponents they've versed. So they're great so far. They're definitely the good of round 2. Next good I'm going with is North Melbourne. 2-0. Who'd have thunk it? What a brilliant start to the season they have had. It was a pretty much 50-50 game for them to get the win over West Coast, but no one at all was expecting them to get the win over at the West against, a pretty respectable Fremantle side, and also that they have not win in Perth for quite some time. They managed to pull off the big upset win by a solitary point, and wow, they are sitting 2-0, and you just look at how they play with Alistair Clarkson in. They finished last year. I just think it's just the low expectations they have. It just gives them a bit more freedom. Clarkson looks like he's loving his job. You've probably seen the visions of him coaching from the ground, really getting around the troops and getting pretty animated on the bench. He just looks like he is absolutely loving it. And as well, you can see compared from last year, there's just a lot more boldness in their play. Instead of just the safe sort of play, you can see a lot more ball skills have improved in their plays. Griffin Logue, for me, has been a very underrated recruit so far. He looks to be very solid down pack, clunking intercept marks left, right and centre. Luke Davies-Uniacke, is he potentially the best player in the competition at the moment? He has been awesome in the clearance game. That's where they're pretty strong at the moment, North. Their clearance game has been very good. Even Cunnington in there and Tom Powell thrown in there as well. They're looking quite strong in that department. They're able to get it forward. And Zurhaar and Larkey are pretty underrated players that have played in not so great of a team the past few years. So now they have got those quite talented players under a good system of Alistair Clarkson. Low expectations too. That could possibly mean into just high upside and potentially more wins this season. So I don't mind their chances in round 3. They do have the Hawks coming up, but they're just playing some really nice football at the moment. 2-0, who'd have thunk it? They've been nice so far this season. And for my final good of round 2, Ross the Boss is back, ladies and gentlemen. I can't really say this too much because I did predict St Kilda to finish 15th at the start of the year. But I hold my hands up. It seems to be a poor decision so far because I didn't really take into account too much that Ross Lyon is able to get the best out of any top of list. He's said in press conferences that he doesn't matter about the injuries and whatsoever. He just plays his system. He backs his system no matter who is on the park. And you can see that the Saints look so much more defensively structured. That's always been the Saints' problems the last year or two. They've just been terrible with conceding too many inside 50s and having too many surges with giving too many points at a specific time. But they just look so solidified back there. Cal Wilkie and Dougal Howard are playing fantastic games. Zane Cordy as well, and he's been great down forward. And what they're able to do is they are able to transition the ball, play a lot more bolder through the corridor, and they seem to play the talls high on the ground whilst the smalls would sort of work their way around. And the main thing, of course, is just their pressure. You look at the game against the Bulldogs, as soon as a Bontempelli or a McRae got the football, there was at least 3 Saints players around them, so they're just able to really force the turnover well. And you just look at the quality of players on their list. On paper, it's just average players like Mason Wood. Yeah, he's okay, but he's on absolute fire. Also, Caminiti and Filippo, they're not average players at all, but just a lot of their young players too are really punching above their weight at the moment, playing some great football. Mitch Owens as well. I just really like the look of Ross Lyon's system. The question is, though, how long is it going to last? You know, could there be a lot more fatigue in the squad with a low amount of depth with all those injuries, because they do play a high pressure style? Who knows? But so far, they've been brilliant, the Saints. They've been very entertaining to watch. Again, I hold my hands up in the air. The prediction looks to be absolutely awful, but Ross the boss is back, and he seems to be in a good situation with the Saints at the moment. Moving on to the 3 bads now, and there's a bit of a difference between the bad and the ugly, because the bad is, quite concerning, then the ugly is just flat out terrible. So I've tried to divide them both quite as best as possible, really. So the first bad I've got is no Selwood, no Geelong. Now, I'll say that with a question mark. I'm not saying as a statement, but it's just a curious sort of question of, is this an actual thing without Joel Selwood? Biggest and most toughest leader the Geelong Cats have probably ever had. They've always had with Joel Selwood. He's just always seemed to lift the squad whenever he's been in the side. You know, if the heads are down, if they're a bit unaccountable, if they're played, Joel Selwood really rallies around his troops, and he does lift the team to a victory. Maybe like last year against the Pies, they came back in that 4th term. With him out of the team, I just wonder, is that Geelong maybe sliding down the ladder this year? Because the first 2 games, look, they've played quite good football. I mean, the first round, they kicked over 100 points, so I guess you could say it was a bit of a healthy loss. But the second round against Carlton, I know Jeremy Cameron went massive. It was a great game from him. It still was a concern because, geez, they had some very unaccountable moments in defence when transitioning, when they did concede inside 50s. They just had a bunch of Geelong players sitting on the edge of the defensive 50, not being bothered to go back and mark their men. And Carlton in the game were just simply able to reap the rewards from Geelong off the turnovers. They kicked most of their points from turnover. They were poor with ball skills on the weekend, or on Thursday, I should say, as well. A lot of their kicks were sloppy. They were just some really questionable kicks in the corridor. It just seemed a very stagnant and lethargic sort of play from the Cats, and it was great to see Cameron almost really save their ass. And to be honest, Cameron's goals were from very impossible angles, which is quite awesome to hear, but that's a bit concerning with their inside 50 method, perhaps. For me, Hawkins just seems to be, it looks like he's slowing down a little bit. He's lost quite a bit of pace now. The question is without Selwood, without him really rallying around his troops and giving them that psychological lift and push and more accountability, is that a big piece out of the Geelong puzzle for another flag potentially this year? It's a question mark, who knows, but for me it's the bout of round 2. For the next bout, I've got Adelaide's inaccuracy continues to cost them. We saw this in round 1 where they were just kicking points left, right and centre. I think Isaac Rankin had about 2 goals, 5, and they went on to lose the game, but that was probably more about their midfield. But still, against the Tigers, they looked poor to kick things off, but then again, they continued to be way too inaccurate, and that really did cost them potentially the game and also a large chunk of momentum, because they could have hit the lead, could have kicked a bunch of goals in a row and be up by potentially 20 points. They were 1 goal 3 at quarter time, 3 goals 6 at half time, 8 goals 14 at 3/4 time, then 10 goals 16 at full time, and went on to lose by a nearly convincing margin of 30 points. Yet they had more scoring shots than Richmond, so it's just a huge concern with how they're going with their scoring. You have Keys and you have Luke Pedler, and you have the likes of course, Taylor Walker missing a few goals, Himmelberg as well, and of course Isaac Rankin. They've just been quite rushed, and it's simply quite an unfortunate thing to see with Adelaide, because they have had some surges of really good football, like those inside 50s they had against Richmond. They started to really win the clearances. They played some great footy with nice entries, but they just simply couldn't convert. So having more scoring shots than Richmond and losing by nearly 30 points is definitely a concern, and it's cost them 2 games. And suddenly now, if they lose against Port Adelaide Saturday night, I think it is, with the showdown, Matty Nicks will be 0-3 into what, their third or fourth year into a rebuild. He is seriously going to be really under the pump, and it's the inaccuracy that has really cost them potentially their first 2 games of this season. For the final bout I've got, is Freo's forward line holding them back? This is a question I've been saying on the channel for the past months. I had Freo out of finals for my predictions, for having them finishing 9th, just because I don't know about their forward line. Defense is a check. The midfield on paper looks brilliant too, but their forward line, ... I don't know. Darcy and Jackson, they sound good on paper, but from what we saw on the weekend, it's just a complete mess at the moment. Darcy started forward, he was dropping marks, he's just not very mobile as well at ground level too. He's got to be their main ruckman, he's a good hit-out ruckman, and Jackson as well, look, he's still 21, 20 years of age, so he's going to be that long-term project. But this year, you know, he could be one of the most overrated recruits of the season potentially, because I don't know where his impact will be. I think he's taken 1 or 2 marks these first 2 games. He's really been unable to show anything. He's been unable to hit the scoreboard, take those contested marks too. The follow-up work's been pretty ordinary as well. So that's just a complete mess there. We all know Taberner, very average, as well as Josh Tracy. He's been unable to really get in the swing of things. Switkowski, I think, is probably their best forward at the moment, just because he's able to really show that pressure and force a few turnovers and maybe kick a goal. Schultz has been okay too, but alongside that, it's just their method to attack into forward 50. It's very boring. It's very bland. Their defense is probably their upside. You know, Luke Ryan's been quite decent. Brendan Cox, very underrated. Pearce has been okay, but it's just forward to centre. Freo have been poor. It's a bad for me, and losing against North Melbourne at home is pretty embarrassing. That is safe to say. So it is just their forward line. I think it is really holding them back, and yeah, there's some big things and big fixes needed to be done for the Dockers. Moving on to the 3 uglies now. So yeah, this is quite a bit of a tier lower compared from the bad. So again, try to situate them in different categories. Yeah, first one, the ugly. Lights out drama. So this is a bit more of an entertaining ugly. Streamed this game and yeah, wow. The lights actually going out whilst the Lions, let me tell you, they were playing fantastic football. But we're talking about the ugly here, not the good. But the reason why I have this in the ugly is not only because the lights out, obviously, lights out drama. It is also because of the rulebook stating if game has not occurred or not resumed within an hour, that means the game is over and the scoreboard finishes as it is. So Brisbane would have won by 40 points. Game over, shake hands, we walk away. However, the thing was, it took nearly 50 minutes, and you heard probably the complaining from Chris Fagan how the D's went out early and they warmed up, and then the Brisbane went out a few minutes after, and then they warmed up, and Zorko talked about it too. He said it was just completely unfair for them to go 0 to 100 in just the span of 2 or 3 minutes. And what did we see? A momentum burst from the Demons, and they almost won it. And quite honestly, if there was another 5 minutes added on, the Demons genuinely could have won that game. So that's a really, you know, debatable topic, I guess you could say. It was a bit ugly with all that lights out drama. Probably instead of an hour, it should be 30 minutes. If the play can't resume after 30 minutes, the game's over instead of an hour. But yeah, just a bit of an ugly moment on Friday night. But hey, it all happened on there. But yeah, pretty intriguing and yeah, pretty ugly stuff. Moving on now to the next ugly. It is probably the most obvious one. The Hawks are in for a long year. How they managed to play against the Sydney Swans. Look, I think for the first term and a half, it was competitive. In fact, they actually managed to win the clearances count by around 8 or 9. So that's definitely a positive with their young midfield. However, they just can't do it for 4 quarters. They simply could not keep up with Sydney. And as well, their just method down the line and going inside 50 was just so bland. It was either down the line or a switch or a foul kick in the corridor. There was just nothing. Absolutely nothing. They barely showed any pressure to the Swans as well. They were able to go down end to end so quickly. Their defense too was all over the shop, and they just genuinely looked like a VFL side. So it was pretty obviously ugly for round 2. Not much more has to be said. They're a very young team. Again, their midfield, Warple, Will Day had some nice games, but you know, Fergus, Green, Kaczynski were just awful. I mean, Kaczynski and Green, they missed every set shot left, right and centre as well. They kicked, I think, 2 goals 10 as well. Like 4 goals. Oh, 2 goals 10. I think they were within at around some point in the 4th term. They were just awful. But yeah, it is quite concerning to see, and they're just simply in for a long year if they're going to have consistent results like this. Not really showing much efficiency inside 50, and their defence looks like they just cannot hold up for 4 full quarters. And for my final ugly and final point of the video, the Bulldogs' awful display. It was just a very uninspiring play. You look at their list, you look at their team on paper, it looks brilliant, but as I have stated, I don't know about Luke Beveridge and their game plan. You always have concerns, or Bulldogs fans have always had concerns of who Luke Beveridge does pick, of all that whatnot, and they were just bland on the weekend. Again, their method inside 50, very uninspiring. Bontempelli and McRae have been very subpar and very not like themselves the first 2 rounds. A lot of poor skills. Bailey Smith with a few turnovers, especially from their defensive 52. And the one thing that has not changed from last year, their defensive transition has been poor. They were the worst team in defending transition from last year, and that could genuinely be on repeat for this year. They were just a terrible team to watch against St Kilda. They could not withstand the pressure of the Saints, and they're seriously a quite concerning team now. And the 4 tools, look, Lob will come back in. I think someone like Darcy needs to push back like he did on the weekend, obviously, against the Saints. But yeah, they're a great team on paper. I don't know, they're just all over the shop at the moment. Beveridge has somehow got to fix things up. But yeah, they're just an ugly team to watch at the moment so far in round 2. So everyone, there was my good, bad, and the ugly of round 2 of the 2023 AFL season. On the couch, Fox Footy, don't copyright me, please. I just think it's a cool video idea to do, so make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to enjoy it. Just a nice low-key, chill video sort of to watch on your Monday morning or Monday afternoon, whenever you want to watch it, of just me chewing the fat, giving my 2 cents of each round. So, yeah, hopefully you did enjoy, and until next time, I will talk to yous later. See you later, fellas.